Good evening, everyone. I'll call the meeting to order. Thanks for coming and attending our June Planning Advisory Committee meeting. And I think I heard on the radio by 5 something tonight it was officially the first day of summer, but it's felt like summer for quite a few days now. But anyway, I know the calendar says it's the 21st, but anyway. And then guess what? The days start to get shorter. I don't want to be a, bearer of bad tidings, but anyway.
Maybe over the weekend.
Oh, there you go. Anyway, welcome, folks. We'll get right into the meeting. First of all, Brian, I see a couple new faces. Maybe some of the committee don't recognize that normally don't sit with us. I think we've met maybe a couple of them, some of the councillors, but maybe if you just want to introduce them for the committee and then the people in attendance too, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think our new attendee this evening is John Finch. John's with Public Works Department, project coordinator. So John's one of the staff on that team that do all of the engineering reviews on applications. It's something that we're kind of trying to introduce a bit more, both with members of that team, where if we have technical applications, particularly larger applications, things like subdivisions, that we have a member of the Public Works crew that have reviewed all of the engineering drawings at the planning committee just to answer any questions. So yeah, John's looking forward to making a few speeches tonight.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyway, welcome, and we'll put you to work when we need you, that's for sure. And bend your ear when we need some knowledge, that's for sure. Okay, without further ado, do we have any disclosure of pecuniary interests, as there's a gentleman I should have, regarding any of the applications? Have seen none. Could I have an approval of the agenda as presented for June the 20th, 2024? Councillor, what's your name anymore? QS, isn't it? Yes. And Mr. Edison.
What's your name?
Any errors or omissions? Well, he said he was going to go to sleep tonight, so anyway, and I told him I'd hit him with a mallet to keep him awake, but anyway. Any errors, omissions, or questions regarding those? All in favor? Carried. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes of May the 16th, 2024? Councillor O'Neill. Councillor Card. Any questions regarding those minutes, errors, omissions? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried, thank you. The public meetings are prescribed by Section 3413 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, as amended for 1 zoning bylaw amendment application affecting land in the Trenton ward, 1 official plan amendment affecting land in the Trenton ward, and 3 zoning bylaw amendment applications affecting land in the Sydney ward. The meeting will be conducted in the following manner for each application. First, I will identify the applications being considered. Then I will ask planning staff to outline the application being considered. Then ask if there are any members of the public who have registered in advance to attend and participate in the meeting or have any questions or comments regarding the application, each application. If there are no public comments or questions, I will ask the committee if they have any questions or comments. Once all committee questions have been addressed, the committee will consider and vote on each application. If you wish to provide comments, please state your name and address for the record prior to addressing the committee. This committee has been delegated the responsibility to conduct public meetings as prescribed under the Planning Act. A full report of the meeting's proceedings will be submitted to City Council on Wednesday, July the 17th, 2024. Council will make the decision on each stated application. Anyone other than the applicant who wishes to receive further notice of Council's decision on each application must submit a written request for notice of Council's decision to the Director of Planning and Development Services. I will now ask the Director of Planning and Development Services, please advise the committee on how notice of these meetings were given.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Notice of the applications being considered this evening were given in keeping with the Planning Act, RSO 1990 as amended, by first-class mail on May 31st, 2024, and posting of signs on the subject properties on the same date.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move right into the public meetings of the evening, and the first one is 7.1, Staff Report 24-055 PD, Official Plan and a Zoning Bylaw Amendment Applications, and the owner is Maple Construction, and Michael Lawrence is the representative, and the agent is RFA Planning Consultants, Inc. Location is 100 East Davis Street. The file number is D09/T13/24 and D09/T14/24. Katie, would you like to address this, please?
Through you, Mr. Chair, application D09/T13/24 proposes to amend the City of Quinte West's official plan and applies to lands located at 100 East Davis Street. The official plan amendment seeks a site-specific policy area which permits medium-density residential development to a maximum of 35 units per 0.4 hectares, rather than the currently permitted commercial uses within Planning District 3B of the Trenton Urban Service Area. The concurrent zoning bylaw amendment application D09/T14/24 proposes to amend the City of Quinte West zoning bylaw as it pertains to the subject lands. The purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment is to permit the development of a 3-story apartment building consisting of 22 dwelling units. The subject lands are currently zoned as corridor commercial. The zoning bylaw amendment proposes to rezone the subject lands to the residential type 5, exception 5 zone to permit the use of an apartment building as well as several site-specific zone provisions. The owner's planning consultant, RFA Planning, has submitted a preliminary concept plan which demonstrates the proposed layout of the site. In addition, several technical studies and reports were submitted in support of the applications, including a planning justification report, a noise impact study, and a traffic brief. The owner's agent is here this evening and will also be giving a short presentation. Ultimately, the approval of these applications would facilitate an intensification opportunity in the city's urban area on a site that already benefits from existing municipal services. The proposed development would take an underutilized parcel of urban land and provide additional housing types that is needed within the community. Overall, the applications are consistent with the provincial policy statement and generally conform to the intent of the city's official plan. The applications represent good planning and are therefore recommended for approval.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think before I ask question, did the applicant wish to make a presentation, as Katie indicated, before we get into public input, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll rely on the, thank you. I think they're just pulling it up now. Wonderful. Good evening. My name is Sean Legere, Vice President and Senior Planner with RFA Planning Consultant, agent for this application. I was retained by the owner back in 2015 to review various development options for 100 East Davis Street site. After careful consideration, in 2022, the owner selected a low-rise rental apartment as the preferred option, and pre-consultation commenced with Quinte West staff. It was confirmed at the time that this required a site-specific official plan amendment and rezoning approvals, along with site plan control approval. In my presentation this evening, I will review the site context, work completed, details of the proposed development, findings of the required technical studies, the planning policy framework, and the applications for your consideration this evening. For those of you not familiar with the site, it is known as 100 East Davis Street. Its official plan land use designation is Urban Planning District 3, Subdistrict B. It is currently within the corridor commercial zone. Uses surrounding the site are highway commercial. We have the 10 Fitness Health Club and the Trent River Residences CC zone to the north. Mixed use to the south, which is Sousa's Pizza Bar and Grill, along with second floor apartments, also within the CC zone. And to the it's low density residential to the east and west that is currently zoned R3. The site's area is 2,541 square meters or 0.63 acres, with lot frontages of 47 meters on the north side of East Davis Street and 53 meters on the west side of Trenton Street. As mentioned previously, we conducted pre-consultation with Quinte West staff in 2022 originally. Since then, the owner has been working diligently to obtain all required technical supporting studies and planning approvals in order to construct rental housing on the subject property. From May 2023 to February of this year, the following work has been completed. You can see all the various studies and drawings that have been completed there. I won't list them all. There they are. Get down to the applications. They were filed, which is the official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment applications. They were filed just this past February, which then received notices of complete application in May. The noted plans and reports have been prepared in support of the 100 East Davis Street project, which will consist of a 3-story rental apartment building, 22 dwelling units with a mix of 1 and 2 bedroom, including 2 barrier-free units. There will be 34 parking spaces, 26 will be uncovered. Whoops. 26 will be uncovered, 8 will be covered, and 2 will be barrier-free. A loading and drop-off zone is provided in the northerly area by the main entrance, along with landscaping and street trees. Landscaped open space provided will be over 23% and will include planting strips around the parking area, lot and street lines, as well as areas for snow storage. Lastly, there is existing privacy fences along the interior side yard and rear yard that are to remain. It is important to note that the low-rise 3-story apartment built form conforms to the medium-density residential criteria. As previously indicated, a series of studies have been completed to confirm the feasibility of the project. To assess potential contamination of the land, a Phase 2 environmental site assessment was completed, which consisted of 4 boreholes, 4 monitoring wells, a review of previous environmental site assessments, preparation of a conceptual site model of potential contaminating air activities. Potential contaminating activities consist of the former gas station and car wash on site, along with nearby rail yard tracks and spurs off-site. Areas of potential environmental concern were found to be for on-site car wash and gasoline storage, on-site de-icing substances, on-site soil storage, and off-site railway operations. The study confirmed that there are no areas of natural and scientific interest have been found on or near the site. The assessment concludes that soil and groundwater conditions meet applicable site condition standards set by the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks. On these bases, a record of site condition has been filed for the site. Regarding sight lines at the Trenton Street and East Davis Street intersection, a review is completed in support of the proposed development based on site triangle requirements of the Geometric Design Guide for Canadian Roads, the 60 km/h design speed of Trenton Street, a 130-meter minimum site distance, and the decision point, which is measured 6 meters from the edge of the traveled way. It was found, due to the curvature of Trenton Street, a site triangle does not intrude upon the site, and on these bases, no site triangle dedication is required from the existing lot configuration. With respect to potential traffic impacts from the proposed development, existing road network conditions have been confirmed. Trip generation estimates have been based on the low-rise multifamily housing land use rates. Additional peak hour trips are estimated at 9 for typical weekday mornings and 11 for typical weekday afternoons. Additional peak hour trips are deemed to have a minor and negligible impact on current traffic operations due to the limited scale. Lastly, the proposed East Davis Street entrance location exceeds required minimum sight lines. On these bases, no road or intersection improvements are required. Regarding noise impact, the study was based on transportation sources, being Trenton Water Street's Telephone Road, the CNR main line to the north and spur line to the west. It was also based on off-street stationary sources, being rooftop HVAC units for the 10 Fitness Gym. It was also based on ambient noise, site observations, and NPC 300 and D6 series guidelines. It is important to note that transportation sources such as CFB Trenton Airport and other stationary sources to the east are outside areas, applicable areas of influence, and or are deemed compliant due to existing intervening residential uses and do not require further assessment. Noise impact study recommendations are for the building facade and windows to meet MPC 300 requirements. Warning clauses are to be included in purchase and tenant agreements, and central air conditioning for all dwelling units is required. These will all be implemented at the time of site plan control. Regarding stormwater management, it has been confirmed that there is approximately 80% existing impervious coverage, which is proposed to increase by 8%. This is considered negligible. Quantity control is not required, reasons being that the site is located within the lower end of the stormwater sewer system and the Trent River. On this basis, a beat the peak approach is recommended via spillways and landscape buffers. Quality control is also not required, reason being the 0.25 hectare lot area is well below the 1 hectare threshold set by the Bay of Quinte Remedial Action Plan. Also to note, all grades at property lines will be maintained. Lastly, sediment and erosion control is recommended during construction to consist of silt fencing and straw bales, along with revegetating exposed earth within 30 days after construction. On a similar note, a servicing overview has been conducted in support of the proposed development and is as follows. There is existing access to water main and storm and sanitary sewers. Connections are recommended to the existing mains along Trenton Street, being 100 millimeter pipe for water and a 200 millimeter lateral for sanitary. There are 2 nearby fire hydrants located within 60 meters of the site. A hydraulic load has been calculated to be 176 for their proposed 22 dwelling units. The maximum day and fire flows have been calculated to be total 250 liters per second. And lastly, the utilities to be installed at the direction of individual providers during the building permit process will include electrical, telephone, gas, and cable. Next, I will provide a brief overview of key planning policies relating to the requested official plan and zoning bylaw amendments. Regarding the provincial policy statement, the proposed development is considered vacant lot intensification of a brownfield site and an existing lot of record within a built-up area, a compact and efficient land use pattern. It is considered active transportation and transit supportive with the proposed 87 dwelling units per net hectare density within 1 block of 2 bus stops that provide access to 3 routes along with existing and planned walking and cycling infrastructure. It is within a defined settlement area, which shall be the focus of growth and development. It will by efficiently using existing infrastructure without unjustified or uneconomical expansion. It will be compliant with the MPC 300 and D series guidelines with no apparent concerns of long-term viability of the surrounding employment area. And it will offer a greater diversity of housing types to meet requirements of current and future residents. To reiterate, the properties within the City of Quinte West Official Plan, Urban Planning District 3, Subdistrict B designation. The requested official plan amendment and rezoning conform to the current and draft official plan by addressing the projected 603 urban unit deficit, by being located at the fringe of a stable residential area and not through low density residential area, by fronting along a designated artery, being Trenton Water Streets, and being in close proximity to transit stops and multi-use trail along the Trent River. It will, by providing adequate lot area and on-site parking, by maximizing compatibility to nearest sensitive land use, by framing the street to create pedestrian-oriented space and improve the physical character of the area. And lastly, by providing a gradual transition in density, height, scale, and massing with the immediate context. It is important to note that the requested official plan and zoning bylaw amendments are supported by technical studies and drawings that confirms its feasibility. With respect to the Quinte West zoning bylaw, the site is currently within the corridor commercial CC zone. It is requested to create a site-specific residential type 5 zone to permit the proposed low-rise rental apartment, and reduce the minimum front yard and exterior side yard standards, to increase maximum lot coverage, and decrease minimum landscape open space to facilitate a compatible residential infill project. The requested R5 zone is considered both appropriate and an overall improvement to the current corridor commercial zone standards for the following reasons. The requested setbacks facilitate adequate parking and site functionality, which has been given preference. The rear and interior side yards provided will exceed minimum R5 zone requirements by 2 and 2.5 times, respectively. The separation has been maximized with nearest sensitive land uses, which has also been given preference. The provided lot area per unit exceeds minimum R5 zone requirement by nearly 1.5 times, despite the requested lot coverage. The requested lot coverage maximizes compatibility by facilitating a 3-story building height form. And lastly, the requested landscape open space provides adequate space for street trees, snow storage, along with adequate separation between the parking areas and street lines. This slide provides a more visual analysis of the site-specific R5 zone request. These are to reduce the minimum front yard and exterior side yard setbacks from 7.5 meters to 3.5 meters, to increase the maximum lot coverage of all buildings from 30% to 35%, and you can see the reduction in minimum landscape open space from 30% to 20%. In summary, the proposed development is considered vacant lot residential intensification of a brownfield site and support a complete community and diversity of housing types. Technical reports have been prepared by qualified professionals in support of the proposed development, which include MECP site condition standards are met and record of site condition has been filed. Traffic impact is both minor and negligible, and that noise impacts can be mitigated. The East 100 Davis Street site project conforms to locational criteria for both medium and high-density residential development in both the current and draft official plans. It frames the street edge to create pedestrian-oriented space and to improve the overall physical character of the area. The requested R5 zone provisions are considered appropriate and more desirable than the current CC zone standards. And lastly, it is important to note that building more homes faster is a matter of federal and provincial interest. Thank you, and I'm here to help answer any questions the committee may have.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. I'm sure maybe there may be some at a few minutes down the road as we peruse the audience to see if there's any questions or comments from anyone, whether in opposition or just general questions. Please come forward and state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, my name is Michelle Avery. I live at 76 Canal Street, so I'm right there in that little spot. First off, my concern is not housing. I think it's important that we have housing. My concern is traffic. If you recall, just about, I want to say maybe a year ago, the council approved another zoning application at 72 East Davis to have apartments built in there above the Sutha's restaurant. At that point, I brought forward my concerns with traffic. The report that the traffic impact is negligible is offensive. In my opinion, I live on Canal Street. I could tell you that 4 times a day I almost get T-boned coming around that corner, that people are traveling far above the speed limit, which is not 60 kilometers an hour. So if that's what your traffic study was done at, I suggest you redo that. The traffic speed limit on Davis, Front Street, Canal Street, Trenton Street, and Water Street is 50 kilometers an hour. With the approval of the zoning application for 72 East Davis Street, there was an issue with sightline from Canal Street making a left-hand turn. There's an issue for sightline from East Davis making a right-hand turn. I have serious concerns that adding another 22 parking spaces to that space, along with the additional 36 spaces that have been approved at 72 East Davis, that is not negligible to me. I've lived in the neighborhood for 30 years. This is not a new traffic problem, but increased traffic in that area is going to make it a problem. So I want to know what is going to happen to make sure that this doesn't turn into a high collision intersection. I do not recall seeing any traffic studies being conducted in my area. Again, I live there. I'm in and out of my house all the time. I have concerns with making a left-hand turn out of that street every time I leave my home. I took a picture tonight while I was leaving. I drive an 8-inch lifted truck. It's very high. I can't see what's coming around the corner because the city also allowed a privacy fence to be built, which allows for zero sight. I can't see anything coming that way. So anybody that's turning left from Canal Street or I also have concerns about the people coming out of Frankfurt Crescent. There are many times when the factories down on Frankfurt Crescent let go. Their employees are trying to leave. They're sitting there trying to make a left-hand turn to go southbound. They can't because the traffic is so impeded. For many years, we've had a crosswalk there that nobody pays attention to. I've almost been hit on it multiple times. It has no lights. It used to be used as a school crossing, and they had to stop using it as a school crossing because people weren't stopping. It's a dangerous space because you can't see what's coming, you can't see what's going. Even coming here to this meeting tonight, I was making a right-hand turn. Somebody came around that corner, probably doing 70 kilometers an hour, and almost rear-ended me as I'm making my turn at a reasonable speed. The average speed on Water Street, Trenton Street, it changes names 3 times, Water Street, Trenton Street, Front Street. I would say the average speed we're dealing with on a daily basis is 70 kilometers an hour. And if it's going to be 70 kilometers an hour, if people are going to travel that, if I'm doing 55, I'm slow. There needs to be some intervention from the city to make it sure that those spaces don't turn into high collision intersections. It's the second time I've brought it to the city in the 12 months because I'm concerned about it. It's the second time I've brought those sight lines to the city, actually the third because I did take it to bylaw and there's been no activity. So I do have serious concerns. My son drives a motorcycle and also people can't see him when he's making a left-hand turn. Every time he comes home, he says, I almost got hit again. Every time I go out, I almost got hit. So my concern is not housing. My concern is not the study of impact for the environment. My concern is making sure that we're taking care of the residents that live there now, the future residents that are going to live there, and making sure that the accidents don't happen, and then we're taking care of it. That's my main concern.
Okay, thank you very much. Maybe staff, would you maybe comment on how this can maybe be reviewed and looked at, and maybe engineering? I'm sure you looked at the sight lines and stuff, but maybe you want to comment on that as in regards to the fence and whatever might be an obstacle in the way. And I know some of it's going to be down to enforcement, that's for sure, from the OPP, I would presume, and maybe we can look at even putting lights for a crosswalk there, the same as what's on down closer to Radetzky Street in that area. So anyway, if you just comment on it, maybe can you give the ladies some...
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, make some kind of general comments there. So I guess the first point is that when traffic analysis is done, it does do it on a cumulative approach in terms of it does take recognition of other projects that are happening in that area. It's definitely an area, as the speaker mentioned, that has been subject to a number of planning applications over the certainly over the last year. Now, some of them, this is obviously a redevelopment, but a new build. It will bring additional traffic to the area. Some of them have been redevelopments of existing uses, so the traffic generation was always there. Definitely when it comes to the overall counts, and I think this is something that we speak to the committee a lot about, and just in terms of capacity and the amount of traffic that a development creates into the system. The reality is that the majority, if not all, of urban roads within this municipality and most others technically operate well within their limits in terms of the amount of traffic that they hold versus what their overall capacity is from a design standpoint, right? Design doesn't always take in human activity in the way that the way people use the roads, but from a design perspective, they are well within capacity, and I think Mr. Leger's the work that they've done and the presentation he made clarified that based on engineering standards, the impact of the additional traffic is negligible from a capacity standpoint. The other thing I would say, though, is that it gets on to maybe more of the root cause of the concern is that definitely it's an area that's seeing growth, it's seeing additional activity. Usually what happens when you get an area that starts to develop to a larger extent, particularly in an area where it has a longer standing higher speed limit and it becomes more urbanized, there's usually a process by which the speed limit gets reduced. That's not the case here because the speed limit technically is essentially as low as it can be in an urban area unless it's a special school district or something of that means. So it really then comes down to the geometry of the roads and the way that people drive those roads. As the chair mentioned, that becomes more a product of the enforcement of that in terms of people's driving speed. When it comes to the geometry of the roads, sight lines are checked. If there's an obstacle to sight lines, we will check that as part of the review, and we will do that with every application. If there's an obstacle, that will be referenced in, and there may have to be changes to alignments and intersections. Now, Mr. Leger, I would also point out to the committee and everybody else that Mr. Leger's presentation was very comprehensive and it got into a lot of detail and with respect to some of those technical elements. We still have not received or we haven't dealt with the site plan application, which is really the vehicle by which we review all of that technical data. So there is still technical review to happen, but at this point in time, certainly based on the amount of traffic that this is going to generate, the capacity of the roads, and the work that's been done to date, staff are supportive of the application.
Okay, thank you.
I would just like to also take the opportunity to add that this is also, it is a main artery of Trenton. It's also a main school bus artery of Trenton. School buses do come down Canal Street and do have issues making that left-hand turn. If you've reviewed the sight lines, somebody needs to go back up there and re-review the sight lines because there is no way that it is safe to turn off of Canal Street. There's no way that it is safe to turn left off of Canal Street. There's no way. It's scary. It's scary enough to drive in Trenton because people don't drive the speed limit and we don't have any lights from Front Street to the roundabout. We have no traffic control along that entire section. So maybe this is more of a traffic issue that I need to revisit with the planning committee for traffic, but there's absolutely zero traffic control in that space. So when you start putting in sight lines that people can't see through, you start putting up privacy fences, letting community people have overgrowth, having their trees hanging down. Everybody knows that Nicholas Street is the worst street in Trenton to drive, to try to make a left-hand turn off because you can't absolutely see anything. The only thing we've done is put a crosswalk in there. Well, the cars aren't getting out the button to push the button down the crosswalk. But when I'm talking about adding traffic to a space where you've got continuous people coming out, and it's not even a good intersection. It doesn't line up. It's not a T. East Davis is here, and then like West Davis is here, and Frankfurt Crescent goes over here, and it's a big S. It's not safe. Again, not opposed to housing. I'm opposed to the fact that we're going to throw a bunch of more people into a situation that won't be good. And if it comes down to somebody getting into an accident, if I get into an accident, making a left-hand turn from my home street, I'm coming back. I'm going to be angry about it because I'm going to be saying that I have brought this to the city 3 times, and 3 times the city has done nothing to impact that.
Okay, thank you. Sir, please come forward. State your name and address, please.
Yeah, John Lawrence, 255 Marsh Hill Road. We're the owners of the property in question. One of the things we did consider moving it from the corridor commercial to residential was actually to reduce the traffic. From our initial studies, if it stays as corridor commercial with, we had the possibility of adding a residential component as well. But then the commercial storefronts that would typically be located there would have a significantly higher amount of in and out traffic than conventional apartments would. So I think that was one of the concerns, that by going to full residential, we're actually trying to reduce a bit of the traffic coming in and out of the road.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else in attendance wish to speak in opposition or have general questions regarding this application before I ask the committee to consider or entertain any questions? Okay, seeing none, committee, you do see the recommendation is recommended for approval, but I would entertain either a motion or questions that you might have. Ms. Simmons, you moving it or a question? Question? Okay, go ahead.
Excellent presentation. I understand the concerns about traffic, and I think whether this goes ahead as residential or not residential, that should be addressed. Although this probably isn't related to planning, but it sounds like a difficult situation. My concern is you have 22 units, and I assume there's going to be children in there. Where are they going to play?
Would you like to address that, sir? Or if you can, I'm not sure.
Through you, Mr. Chair, these units are a mix of 1 and 2 bedrooms. So the market for families isn't there as strongly as maybe for 3-bedroom units. You're probably going to go get more single people and couples. I know the owner can speak to more about the market of what they're marketing towards. As mentioned during my presentation, part of what makes this use work here is the proximity to open space, which is a locational criteria for this level of use. So that's a strong consideration where you're near other open space and public facilities.
So that is good as long as they're not young children there. But you can't guarantee, because of housing being so tight, there won't be young children there, and there's no plan. But if you only have single units and single people in those single units, then you don't need 1.5 parking spots, as far as I'm concerned. Maybe one person has 2 cars, I don't know. But I just think that the potential is there of having children there, and I think that should be taken into consideration.
Okay.
I guess my only other response is there are amenity provisions for apartments in the zoning bylaw that we don't trigger those here. So we simply followed all minimum regulations, I think is sort of the answer.
Okay. Mr. Brown, I believe you had your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm sorry, I forget your name, but the lady brought up a point that I don't think has been addressed, because I picked up on it during your presentation. Can we just rewind a little bit back to the traffic study that you did and the 60-kilometer-an-hour provision? Because I think most people here know that that's not a 60-kilometer-an-hour zone. So is this a flawed study we're talking about?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there's a very simple explanation for that. The study is done to the design speed of the road, not the posted speed of the road. So it's a more conservative way of doing the assessment, that it's assumed people are driving at least 10 kilometers per hour faster than the posted speed limit. So it's just the way the studies are done to the design speed, which in this case is 60 kilometers per hour. So it's not a flawed study. It was done correctly.
Oh, it makes sense. I mean, yeah, 50 is 60.
It's a more conservative way to look at the situation.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And not a question for you, but could we get collision stats on that road? I mean, we're hearing that it's a dangerous road, so I think it might be fair to ask for traffic collision stats if we're able to get those.
I can personally speak to the fact that somebody has died there because I haven't been.
Well, I'm very sorry to hear that. What I'm talking about is just something a little more official, perhaps from the OPP detachment, or I'm not sure how you'd go about that.
Certainly it's possible. It's not something we normally do. I think, again, to bear on the statistics, if we had a high collision intersection, there is a concern we would know about it at the starting point of reviewing an application like this. I think, part of, unfortunately, what this conversation gets into is that difference between, the perception of danger versus actual, the difficulty of getting out of an intersection versus what's the design of the road would tell you is a normal expectation. You get into, it becomes very kind of softy edges, but this is not known as a high collision intersection as far as I'm aware.
Thank you. Yeah, and that's, to my point, that is what I'm thinking here. There's perception. We're hearing perception. If we can have some sort of data, I don't understand it to be a high collision intersection myself. I do know people, yes, if you drive 55 through there, you're going to have a bumper buddy. But I just haven't noticed it to be dangerous per se, and I drive it quite often. From what I can see, where I am, yeah. I'm familiar with the area. I can't see it being a rough place. I mean, certainly there are times of day where the traffic is heavier, and that's the same no matter where you go. But most times I'm on it, traffic's pretty light, and I wouldn't really have a problem. And I see people make left turns there all the time, and I don't see issues. I'm not trying to reduce what you're saying here. It's just that I think it's, there's certainly a perception that it's a dangerous area for traffic. I haven't seen it myself, and that's why I thought, to ask for if it's possible to get some sort of stats when it comes to that, it might just be a better litmus test, I think.
Okay, I'll come this way to the board members. Have any questions or comments? Councillor Quinte?
Yeah, I do. Thanks very much. I am going to support the recommendation from the city staff. And the discussion on traffic, from my point of view, isn't for this committee. We could make a recommendation to the council to request a more thorough investigation into the traffic on Trenton Street and Water Street and Front Street, because there are times when it's busy and then there's lots of times when it's not busy. I personally drove that section of road from north to south just on Saturday, and I made the same observation that Miss Avery made about zero traffic lights or traffic controls other than the surface of the road itself, which I know Director Angelo is well aware of, Public Works Director Angelo is well aware of, and seems to me he was doing some research or investigations into perhaps installing bike lanes along there. I don't know where he's finished off with his research or his report that he was going to bring back to council on that. So I'm not certain where he is with that. My observation is if I was going to be using Canal Street on a regular basis to turn left, I would go to one of the streets farther south where there's better visibility that you can see the traffic coming from north and from south. So I wouldn't necessarily use Canal Street. I would go farther south. I'm sorry, I don't remember that. I think one of them was Bridge Street, where you have a better sight north and south as to, yeah, I see there's Canal, but there's streets farther south where you can get a better visual of traffic coming from the north and traffic coming from the south versus either at East Davis Street, which, great observation, because that is kind of a unique intersection. And there's more residential housing being proposed on Frankfurt Crescent as well. We also approved another development last year as well to go ahead for residential. So I just want to express, I guess, to the citizens that it's, and it was just brought up, it's the engineering and the volume of traffic that these streets are all able to handle quite easily. But in reality, there are times when it's more difficult, and yes, everyone has access to call the OPP. If there's, of course, if there's an emergency, you call 911. If there's a traffic incident, you call the 1-888 line, and you usually get an operator to answer your call in a short period of time. I know because I've done it myself. I actually add the OPP directly to my contact list so I can get them on the phone in a very short space of time. And the local detachment, you're always more than welcome to contact the local detachment. We do have a traffic officer, and you can leave a message to have the traffic officer contact you, and maybe they could arrange to do some patrols of that particular neighborhood so they can get an idea. I don't live in this neighborhood. I do live in another part of the city. And anytime I've contacted them about traffic issues, I get response right away. And I know they have come to my own neighborhood when requested to do some traffic control, just to show a presence as well is always good. And if you call the OPP and give them some idea that there are issues going on, then that tells them that when they go there and they see some of these issues, that perhaps maybe they can change their routines or include your neighborhood in their routine. And staffing issues, they need to know these things to help them. So, of course, we need them to help us, but they need us to help them to get to these situations, because otherwise they're just going to handle the most emergency things that they got on their list, and somehow they got to coordinate everything. So I would like to make the motion to proceed as recommended by the staff, and I just need a seconder to help me along. And great presentation from both. I like the concerns, and maybe at the end of the meeting can make a recommendation about the traffic and get a report back from Director Angelo at one of the council meetings about Trenton Street, Water Street, and Front Street, and what he has in store for us.
You had your hand up, Mr. Brown, to second. I presume to put it on the floor, so we have a mover and a seconder, Council Coonsey, and Mr. Brown seconds. And I believe this gentleman here had his hand up earlier when Councillor, I didn't know whether you wanted to make a comment or not when you were listening to Councillor Coonsey's presentation, and I know Brian has got a question or a comment, I'll put it that way. So whoever wants to go first, please do so.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, through your chair, to Mr. Jardine, my colleague, for letting me go first. The only thing I just wanted to focus on is that our traffic impact study was prepared in support of the proposed development. The scope of our study was reviewed by staff, and no additional information was requested when they reviewed the study. Our study proves that the intersection of East Davis Street and Trenton Street is safe. That was the scope of our study because that is the main access point that our project uses. So I just wanted to separate the Canal Street issue from the 100 East Davis Street project, and that it very much seems in line with Councillor Knutz's comments as well. So I just wanted to focus on that, and further to the councillor's comments, I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 intersections along Water Street and Trenton Street. So Front Street runs parallel to Water Street. There's 7 intersections total along that stretch of road, and that we have proven that the one immediately north of Canal Street is safe. So I just wanted to bring that to the committee's attention.
Okay, thank you very much. Brian, do you want to make a comment, please?
Yeah, through Mr. Chair, just to kind of follow on from Mr. Leger's comments there. The first thing is, obviously, this is official plan amendment zoning bylaw amendment applications. As the committee know, they define and set the principle for development in the land use and the zoning parameters. As I mentioned earlier, there is still a technical site plan exercise to go. Based on the comments received and following on from Mr. Leger's comments, we will commit to further review of the sightlines. I think that comment has come up. We will definitely review that again and confirm the outcomes of the traffic study for that intersection. We will touch base with OPP in relation to collision statistics so that we have that on file. And that's the process moving forward related to the traffic issue for this application. I think there's a bigger question that's been put on the table, and that's the overall traffic safety along that entire corridor from the roundabout to the downtown. And I think that is, as I understand it, is a question we can this committee can direct on to traffic safety committee through Public Works.
Okay, thank you. I'll move down this way to any comments or questions of Councillor McHugh.
Yeah, I will be supporting this, but I'm along the same lines as what the Director has just stated, and Councillor Quinte. I think we need to, in addition to sight lines, this might be an engineering problem that we have here. We obviously have Ms. Avery's come forward, and she's stating that there is a problem at one of the intersections. I don't think it's fair to ask her to go down, approach from another road. The roads are there. We did design them years ago and put them there. So I would highly recommend that when the sight line's being done, to me, reach out to Public Works and have them take a second look. There might just be some kind of an engineering solution to this problem, possibly. I don't know. But if Councillor Quinte wanted to, if a motion is needed afterwards, along that lines, I would gladly support that.
Yes, Brian, you want to comment on that, please?
Yeah, just to clarify, through Mr. Chair, through the site plan exercise, we will review the sight lines again for this intersection as it relates to this development. The other conversation that seems to be happening now is the traffic safety, travelling speed along that entire corridor. That's a separate conversation they will direct through the Public Works Department. Okay. Traffic safety.
So you're, I guess, saying you don't think we need an extra, I guess, motion to cover that? We'll deal with it at site plan time.
We'll for this application, we'll do that. If this committee wants us to pass something on to the traffic safety, traffic advisory committee, then that would be a separate motion to look at this entire corridor, okay, if that's the desire.
Councillor Quinte.
I don't know if my fellow councillors remember, but I remember Public Works Director Chris Angelo when he was reviewing this particular section where Trenton Street, Water Street, and French Street, and I don't know if it was just a conversation he and I were having or if it's in the active transportation plan. I don't remember because the active transportation plan was done like 8 or 9 years ago now, and he had it in mind where he was thinking or considering active transportation lanes or bike lanes, if you want to call them that, along this section of road, which would then reduce the cars to just 2 lanes going each way instead of the current 4 lanes. But I don't know if my fellow councillors remember that, and it wasn't yesterday, and it wasn't 2 years ago either. It was like 4 or 5 years ago that I recall him at least throwing that idea out, and I don't know where he is with that, because all of this stuff takes time and money to research these things. And I don't, and I understand from the engineering point, the way the road sort of travels and goes. At times, it would make sense to have some kind of traffic light system somewhere along that way, and I wouldn't know which intersection that I would even put it at. That's not my specialty. But we have other corridor roads in the city of Quinte West. Like you can even just go to Dundas Street, just out here, where you have an intersection, traffic control at Dixon. You have another one at Dufferin, and then another one out at the Trenton High School, and same going in the other direction on Dundas Street. We have them on Ontario Street, Byron Street, and 2 other traffic lights going through, actually 3 other traffic lights going east out towards the base. And yet, when you're coming in from the north, you leave the 401 and there's 0 traffic lights. You have the roundabout, which is a form of traffic control, and people must, drive appropriately through the roundabout, or you're going to be upside down if you go too fast through there. And that's what it's supposed to do. You're supposed to drive appropriately on the roads. And even though a speed limit is posted, the city of Quinte West posts the speed limits and then expects the OPP to do traffic control, as well as the citizens actually using the road. If they would just drive the posted speed limit, it would, reduce these conversations immensely. But speeding is an issue in every city located anywhere in Ontario or any other part of the country. I read the news all the time looking for these stories. They're in Ottawa, Toronto, Kingston, Waterloo, Smith Falls, you name it. Every week, there's stories about speeding, and the OPP give their statistics on a quite regular basis, and the number of infractions are in the thousands on speeding issues, including stunt driving, hundreds and hundreds of stunt driving infractions. Every week, you can read about the stunt driving infractions just on the 401. But I guess people they don't get enough speed, so they got to speed everywhere for some reason. Even myself, I'll go a couple of kilometers over the speed limit, and then other times I'll drive less than the speed limit. It depends on what I got to do that day. But anyhow, those are my comments, and I will be voting yes, and we'll expect something from Mr. Angelo.
Councillor McHugh?
Yeah, if I'm hearing correctly, hopefully this will go to the Active Transportation Committee for them to review.
Okay.
It's a public meeting, committee meeting, and Ms. Avery can attend and express your concerns there, and we can go forward and look at it at that time.
Councillor Curd?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and we'll also be supporting the application, the residential brownfield densification, hooking into existing infrastructure, a nice mix, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom apartments, exactly what we need, more options for housing in the community, and I do agree and hope Active Transportation can look into, I know there's been questions swirling about different portions of the three-name street, and Nicholas Street, of course, is a very common one that we hear about too, so perhaps it's time to take a holistic look at that again, but I think certainly this is a good and worthy project, and absolutely look to support it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Edson? Okay. Okay, there are no further questions or comments. I would entertain we have a motion here to approve by Councillor Quinte and second by Mr. Brown. Without further ado, I'm going to ask all in favor of approval of the recommendation. Carried, thank you.
All right, good for her. Thanks for the update.
Thanks for your presentation this evening. Before we leave this item, I just wonder how you want us to word this, maybe Brian, to make sure we encompass all the concerns and pass them along. I guess we are to our sister committee or
Yeah, through you,
Sister.
yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. Somebody just put some wording together, I'm not sure who it was. So that the committee recommends, well, let's see here, committee recommends what it says is, committee recommends that council direct staff to review and prepare a report back to the Active Transportation and Traffic Safety Advisory Committee on the road design and traffic safety on Trenton Street, Water Street, Front Street. I think that could get us started. We might, with the committee's agreement, wordsmith a lot better. Basically, what we'll do out of this recommendation is, I don't think we'll go through council. I think we would recommend it directly to Public Works Director, that this committee is asking for a report to be sent to Active Transportation on the traffic safety issues along that road.
Okay, everybody comfortable with that? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Yeah, sure.
Councillor Quinte, Mr. Brown. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
The next active transportation meeting is July the 8th. I don't know that they're going to have time to get it on that agenda, but that's the next meeting. Thanks.
Okay, now we move on to item 7.2, Staff Report 24-056 PD, a zoning bylaw amendment application. The owners David Gillick and Elizabeth Leckie. The agent is Three Hills Engineering. The location is 126 Oak Lake Road. File number D09/S223/24. Madison, would you like to speak to this application, please?
Through you, Mr. Chair. The purpose of this amendment is to remove the holding symbol from the subject property, which would result in the property being rezoned from the rural residential exception 1 holding zone to the rural residential exception 84 zone. This would facilitate the demolition of the existing cottage and the subsequent reconstruction of a new cottage, detached garage, and septic system on the property. The new cottage would have a larger setback from Oak Lake. Prior to this rezoning application, the property was subject to the site plan control process, by which the property owner submitted a formal site plan prepared by a licensed professional engineer. In addition to the site plan, the applicant submitted an environmental impact study. The site plan control file was granted approval on May 9th, 2024. Overall, this application is consistent with the provincial policy statement, the city's official plan, and maintains the intent of the zoning bylaw. This application is recommended for approval.
Okay, thank you very much, Madison. Do we have anyone in attendance who wishes to address or have any questions regarding this application? Or opposition? I was going to get to the applicant. If you wish to speak, please come forward.
Just if there's any questions.
If you just come give your name and address for the record so our secretary can make sure we get everything, the right information.
I'm one of the owners of 126 Oak Lake Road.
Yep.
And the purpose of the zoning amendment is to redevelop the recreational site, tearing down, demolishing the existing structures, which are falling down and full of mold, unusable, and rebuilding a cottage and the detached garage, and putting a septic system in that's compliant to existing standards, lessening the impact on Oak Lake, and that's it. And I ask for your consideration to pass.
Well, looking at it, and I think it's a great improvement personally, and I'm quite sure the rest who have perused it themselves will say the same thing. So, yeah. Councillor McHugh moves it, I guess, to, and Councillor Quinte. Any questions before I call the vote? Councillor O'Neill.
Thanks. It's my understanding that's going to improve the environmental there. You're going to put a brand-new septic system in, and with the setback farther away from the lake, that'll also help. Is that correct?
Yes, there's a privy that's been on the property for quite some time. It's getting to the point where it's probably falling down. I had a septic design. They asked me at that point if it had an existing septic system. I said, I don't know what's in the ground, right? Who knows? I haven't dug it up. I haven't looked. There is a existing pipe going out of the cottage, and she says that that's a definition of a septic system, close to the water. One of the conditions within the site plan agreement is to put a new septic system in to current standard. So I think it's conservation authorities they see the benefit of Oak Lake. I see the benefit of Oak Lake, and yeah, I want to improve the site. I want to improve the lake.
Councillor Quinte.
Thank you very much for making this investment in this property. I personally know other landowners on Oak Lake, and they are going to be ecstatic to hear your plans. Thank you very much. Yes. I will be, of course, I've already seconded it, so I'll be voting in favor.
Okay. Any other committee questions? All in favor of approval, recommendation? Carried, thank you. Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to item 7.3, Staff Report 24-057, PD Zoning Bylaw Amendment Application. The owner is Joseph Skid and Ty Skid. The agent is Watson Land Surveyors. And then we do have a representative of Watson's here this evening if you need any questions or confirmation of anything. And the location is 1457 Fish and Game Club Road. The file number is D09/S21/24. Madison, again, please, would you comment on this application, please?
Through you, Mr. Chair. The purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment is to satisfy a condition of consent applications B13-24S and B41-21S amended, which were conditionally approved by the Committee of Adjustment on March 14th, 2024 and April 11th, 2024 respectively. Through consent application B13-24S, a 0.38 hectare parcel of land was severed for lot addition purposes and added to 1447 Fish and Game Club Road. Through amended application for consent B41-21S amended, a new 0.89 hectare lot was conditionally created. So the purpose of this zoning bylaw amendment is twofold. First, it is to rezone the lot addition lands from the rural zone to the rural residential zone to harmonize the zoning between the lot addition lands and the benefiting lands. And then second is to rezone the proposed severed lot from the rural zone to the rural residential zone to bring it into conformity with the city's zoning bylaw and recognize the residential nature of the property. The retained lands would remain in the rural zone. So overall, this application is consistent with the provincial policy statement, the city's official plan, and maintains the intent of the zoning bylaw. This application is recommended for approval.
Okay, thank you very much again, Madison. Do we have anyone in attendance who wishes to speak in favor or in opposition or have any general questions? And I see the representative is shaking her head no, so we'll throw it back to the committee here for your perusal and consideration. Mr. Brown moves it. Okay, seconder. Mr. Edison, any further questions or comment? All in favor? Carried, thank you. All right, we'll now move on to 7.3, staff report 24-058 PD, a zoning bylaw amendment application. The owner is Kevin Howden. The agent is Watson Land Surveyors again, and the location is 292 Glen Miller Road. The file number is D09/S22/24. Katie, please, would you comment on this application, please?
Through you, Mr. Chair, application D09/S22/24 applies to land located at 292 Glen Miller Road. This rezoning application is a condition of consent applications B15/24S and B16/24S, which were conditionally approved by the Committee of Adjustment on April 11th, 2024. Under the consent applications, the Committee of Adjustment conditionally approved 2 new lots, each developed with an existing single detached dwelling. This zoning bylaw amendment application proposes to rezone the subject lands from the Development Exception 1 zone to the Development Exception 2 zone. The Development Exception 2 zone would include special provisions to recognize all of the existing setbacks, lot areas, lot frontages, and lot coverage, as well as the additional dwelling units that are present in 2 of the dwellings. The approval of this application would recognize each of the dwellings, each on their own lot, as a result of the consent applications, and would significantly improve this existing situation. The application meets the intent of the provincial policy statement and the city's official plan and maintains the intent of the zoning bylaw, and is therefore recommended for approval.
Okay, thank you very much, Katie. Do we have anyone in attendance who would have any general questions, opposition, concerns? Okay. Moved by Councillor McHugh, second by Ms. Simmons. Any general questions before we call a vote? Seeing none, all in favor of approval? Carried, thank you. Your comments regarding the applications and staff reports have been recorded and will be forwarded to the members of council together with the minutes of this meeting. Council will make a decision to approve or refuse each stated application at the regularly scheduled council meeting of Wednesday, July the 17th, 2024. We now move to item 8, public input. Anybody wish to come forward with any questions or concerns? Seeing none, thank you. Presentations, we have none. Delegations, I did not see any. Decision items, we move to, we have none. Printed information. So we have 12.1 AB, the zoning bylaw official plan amendment application tracking, building department's reports from January to May, and the committee, site plan committee meeting minutes, and I would ask for approval of all 3 of those items and entertain any questions. Councillor, or Mr. Edison moves it. Councillor McHugh, any questions regarding any of those 3 items? Seeing none, all in favor to receive? Thank you. Okay, get over to the next page. All right, we'll go around the table. Requests for information. Mr. Edson, do you have any concerns?
Driving by the old PX Chrysler, I see some really heavy equipment up there now digging again. Are we, everything is all good with them now? And
Through Mr. Chair, ongoing process on a number of fronts, both with installation of water main and with the building permits on the property. Our staff are there regularly, monitoring the progress.
perfect, as long as our staff is there. Thank you, Mr. Jardine.
Second, Councillor Card.
Nothing, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McHugh, done? Down here, Councillor Quinte.
Go first.
Move this way to the end.
Just a comment, has nothing to do with the planning committee, so I did pull up the active transportation plan that was developed and brought to council and passed by council in 2018, and French Street and Water Street and Trenton Street, if I'm reading this map correctly, I don't know if this means anything to anybody, but it's marked draft MTO, province-wide cycling network transportation features, is how it's marked on the active transportation plan. I do not know exactly what that means, but just to let the members of the public know, that section of the roadway is identified in the active transportation plan. So something may happen at some point in time, pending on Director Angelo's direction to council. Okay, that's all I got to say.
Probably that little word budgeting too, I would presume.
Well, I didn't say that, but Mr. Angelo would make a recommendation and then we would say yes or no.
That's usually how it works. Councillor Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Director Jardine. The recent opening of the Homestead project, they announced a new hotel being built. Have they applied for a building permit on that, or they just announced that?
Oh, through you, Mr. Chair, I'll defer that to Ms. Whitehead. Yeah, she's dealing with it.
Through you, Mr. Chair, they're currently undergoing the site plan control process, so they've just submitted this week their second submission. So we're still working on that, and then they will be able to submit their building permits once approved.
So how many units in the apartment or hotel?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there will be 77 hotel rooms.
Great, thank you.
Okay, and I believe Committee of Adjustment dealt with a minor variance on that last meeting just a few weeks ago too, which involved that to try and keep that project moving too. So, Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I read, I think I got this correct, that today in the, 42-degree heat with the Humidex, volunteers went out and planted 200 trees in the city of Quinte West. I think the objective of this committee is to make it a more livable city. And it takes more than housing just to do that. So I want to recognize the hard work and the very uncomfortable environment they were in today. But I think every little effort that gets put into making Quinte West look more appealing helps this committee in many ways. Thank you, everybody.
Ms. Simmons, you have a comment, please?
I just had a question. Who do you address for dangerous intersections? Since we brought this topic up, who is in charge?
Well, actually, we get a lot of the safety and speed limits and that, this active transportation committee deals with that.
So the transportation committee.
Brian, as far as I know, that's the one that deals with it, but you can bring it forward to anybody or council and it can get referred to that. I know I get calls on certain roads that have speeding, and they think we can just snap our fingers and change the signs, but we have to do it legally and it has to be done right. So anyway, that's normally what it is. But
I'm just referring to a blind intersection. So
okay. Well, if you have one in particular, certainly put your 2 cents in, as they say. I have one question, and I've had people ask me this different times over the last few years. With all the shortage of housing, why is not Kingfisher Cove? And I know there was 2 more phases to go on there, but I've had one person ask me, I thought you have approvals to the second phase and yet nothing has happened. And I'm wondering maybe if the time limit is running out on the approvals. It seems to me like it was a couple of years ago at
Through Mr. Chair, so that one was approved, as you know, that project is a condominium project, so it was approved through site plan, so it doesn't have the same kind of expiry dates that a subdivision would have. As for the other question, I think that project is, has taken a long time to kind of come to fruition. From our perspective, it's been essentially approved or close to approvals and ready for some time. I think, really don't have an answer to that. I mean, really, as the municipality being an approval authority, we are if you like, the receivers of the projects, and we go through the approval process, but then it's up to the proponent to initiate. We don't have any control over the speed at which that happens. I would suggest it might be as much to do with the market as anything else right now. There's a number of projects that have been approved and either haven't started at all or have started and done some work but then have slowed up over the last year with the dip in the housing market. There seems to be signs that that's picking up and improving. That's kind of what we're hearing from some of our major builders. But yeah, I can only say probably market conditions would be my only thing. I don't think there's any technical reasons that would stop it from moving forward.
Yeah. Well, I know they went through a hearing at the Conservation Authority to get the approvals for the second phase there, and it just seems like it's stagnated all of a sudden, and I get this one person that asks me this all the time. I drive by there all the time, and I expect to see building going on there, and I know the servicing was put in and all that.
That's right,
and, what have you.
Kelly actually mentioned to me there, just there, that it's actually changed hands as well, so there's obviously been some land ownership changes, so.
Yeah. Well, thank you anyway. It's just, it was just a question that I was asked to peruse, I guess, when there was right opportunity. So without further ado, if there's no other business to be brought forward, I would entertain that hard motion to be done at the end. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Card and Mr. Edison, you sure you want to go carry? Okay. All in favor? Thank you. Thank you, staff. Thanks, everyone, for your attendance.